Just as we all expected, Louisville versus Oklahoma for the Battle for Atlantis championship. Huh?
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Happy Black Friday to you. Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there. Yes, we're coming to you all this week long, even on Thanksgiving week, because we want to make sure you don't miss a second of all the great college basketball content. You're joining me at the place to get your college basketball content every single day, and I want to thank you for making this your first listen or watch, and remind you that you can catch every episode ad-free on Amazon Music. Special shout out to all the everydayers and all the members of the Locked On College Basketball Discord that are in here joining us today. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Look, coming up on the show today, it's kind of the same as our Thanksgiving Day show. There's just so much basketball, so much great basketball, I should say, going on right now because of all the MTEs and even some of the standalone things that are happening. So we're going to have to kind of fly again today like we did, but I want to get you through everything, hit some storylines, and look ahead to the weekend where things start to slow down a little bit so you can catch your breath as you maybe work off all of your Thanksgiving turkey. So that's what we'll do today. We're going to talk Battle for Atlantis, Northwestern getting just straight up jobbed, Twins facing off against each other in Kansas City. Awesome stuff. The wrap up of the inaugural Players Era Festival, all of that coming up. But we got to start with Battle for Atlantis, where the Thanksgiving schedule gave us a game that we thought we'd get, or two games we thought we'd get, just in the different order than we thought we would get. Because as a reminder, West Virginia upset Gonzaga and Louisville upset Indiana. So by that regard, Louisville and West Virginia were the two teams playing in the first semifinal of the day. A fun matchup. Louisville ends up winning this thing 79-70 in overtime, one of quite a few overtime games we had on Thanksgiving Day. And the big takeaway, honestly, is I think Louisville and West Virginia fans can feel better about their preseason, better about being better than their preseason projections. And that's a good place to be. Chucky Hepburn, how about this? Pours in 32 points for Pat Kelsey's team. 8 of 12 from the field, 2 of 5 from 3, and 14 of 17 at the free throw line. Chipped in 3 boards, 2 assists, and 6 steals for Chucky Hepburn. It's got to be the little colored pop in his hairband. That's what's making all those steals happen. Great stuff there. On the West Virginia side, another big game for Javon Small. 26 points, 7 boards, 7 assists, and 4 steals. I mean, he's just doing all sorts of stuff for Darren DeVries' team. And to that point, Tucker DeVries, only 8 points in this game. Would love to see more from him. And West Virginia is going to need more from him in the long run. But for now, it's nice to see Javon Small doing all that. But man, when those guys can both be rolling together, that puts the Mountaineers in really, really good shape. And maybe they can do more in the Big 12 than we thought or imagined they would. As for Louisville, it's we'll talk later about Wake Forest, and you look around at the rest of the ACC, and if Louisville can put these pieces together, no reason they can't be a top 4 seed and get that double bye. Now, it's probably going to have some ebbs and flows as the season goes along, but man, gotta love this for Louisville. They're in the Battle for Atlantis championship game, and in that championship game, they're going to face off against Oklahoma because the Sooners just knocked off Arizona on Thanksgiving Day. Not too thankful of a day for Tommy Lloyd, I guess not. 82-77 is your final score. Oklahoma is now 6-0. Arizona falls to 3-3. That's not the record I think we thought either of these teams would have at this point of the season, but that's where it is. Arizona is obviously now lost to Oklahoma, along with Duke and Wisconsin before that. So that is a Big 12 loss, an ACC loss, and a Big 10 loss for the Wildcats. Kind of crazy stuff there. Nope, I lied. Oklahoma is SEC. Man, it's hard to get used to that. So anyway, there you go. An SEC, an ACC, and a Big 10 loss so far for Arizona, who's a Big 12 team. Y'all, eventually we're going to get to the point where this is all just like it comes into our memory. But right now, man, it's still working to get there. For the Sooners, Jeremiah Fears, 26 points, Jalen Moore, 24. So they combined for 50 of Oklahoma's 82 points. That's a great sign for this team. Arizona was down just 3 points, 78-75, under a minute to go, and they had 3 good looks at it. Caleb Love misses a 3, Jaden Bradley misses a 3, KJ Lewis gets blocked, and they can't do it. And Oklahoma salted away at the free throw line, man. Crazy, crazy stuff that we did not expect. So again, by virtue of that, we're going to see a Louisville, Oklahoma championship game in the Battle for Atlantis today on Friday. We'll set those things up here in just a second. But in the ranked game, Indiana, 14th ranked in the nation, against number 3 Gonzaga. And it's always that thing of like, okay, both of these teams lost, so one of them is now going to lose again, and at best finish this event 1-2, right? Like, that's just how these brackets and tournaments go. Unfortunately for Indiana, they end up getting crushed for the second day in a row, back-to-back days. And this final score, 89-73, doesn't scream crushed, but that final score is not indicative of the control Gonzaga had of this game basically throughout, save a spurt that Indiana had in the first half. And that's kind of how it went. Gonzaga got out to a hot start, 13-3 lead, and then Indiana goes on this 15-3 run to actually take a lead of their own, 18-16. And catch this, it stayed pretty tight. Umar Ballo gets a layup to make it 33-31 Gonzaga, 8-11 to go in the first half. It's like, all right, Indiana's back. We're going to have a basketball game here. Unfortunately, the Hoosiers do not score again until there is 2:58 on the clock. That's just over a 5-minute stretch of not scoring a single point. And in that span, Gonzaga goes on a 16-0 run to just basically put the game out of the reach. By the time the half is over, it's an extended 24-8 run, and it's done. Good grief. So, and then Gonzaga can just kind of coast through the second half, and that's what happens. So Umar Ballo, he finishes with 25 points on 11 of 13 shooting, but Mackenzie Mbako is the only other Indiana player in double digits. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Gonzaga is really spreading out this scoring. 6 different Bulldogs are in double figures, but they were all between 11 and 16 points. Man, as a coach, I would be salivating to have a group that can do things like that, because how in the world do you figure out who you're going to guard when you've got a whole bunch of guys that can do that, and Graham Ike having a much better day than he had on Wednesday. And so a really good bounce back for Mark Few's team. But on the other hand, if you're Indiana and you're Mike Woodson, this team's now gotten crushed in back-to-back days by Louisville and Gonzaga. I mean, unless something turns around that we're not seeing right now, this team is not going to be up or at or near the top of the Big Ten standings like a lot of people projected they would be. Now, maybe something changes and they really get going, but from what I've seen the last 2 days, no. Really curious to see how they look today, Friday, in their final game at Atlantis. But and you know, the 3-point shooting was the thing we kind of harped on coming into the season of like, hey, they're not a great 3-point shooting team last year. They didn't really address it very well this year. And so what's going to happen? Well, Wednesday they shot fine from 3, although of course they lost in this game against Gonzaga, 22% on Thanksgiving Day, 4 for 18 from beyond the arc. That's just not going to cut it. And then in the fourth game of battle for Atlantis, Providence and Davidson, the fighting Steph Curry's knock off Providence 69-58. They had a 20-point halftime lead and just held on and won this game against Providence. So big time for Davidson there. So all of that sets up today's final games of the 2024 battle for Atlantis. I'm going to go in not chronological order of when the games will be played, but in order of championship, 3rd place, 5th place, 7th place. So the championship game, I already mentioned Louisville and Oklahoma. Again, like what? How is that a thing? But it is. 5:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. Louisville's favored right now by 2.5. The 3rd place game, Arizona and West Virginia, is at 3 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2. FanDuel has it Arizona by 6.5. 5th place game, Gonzaga against Davidson, 8:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2. Zags by 20.5 points at FanDuel. And then the 7th place game, Indiana and Providence, 11 a.m. Eastern on ESPN2. KenPom, we didn't have a FanDuel line yet. KenPom has it Indiana by 3. So Unfortunately, we've got 3 ranked teams. This is just like the Maui, last day of the Maui games. 3 ranked teams, that was 4 in Maui. None of them are playing each other on the last day of the battle for Atlantis. This is just kind of how it broke down. And so Indiana is going to try to avoid, if we're going to compare it to Maui, Indiana is going to try to avoid being the Yukon of good grief, of Battle for Atlantis. And so crazy, crazy stuff there. All right. Much more to get to from Thursday. We're going to power through a bunch, including Croatian twins going head to head in Kansas City on American Thanksgiving Day, right? Like that sounds like some kind of crazy novel that you might read or a sitcom. But that's what it is. And there we go. We'll get to that coming up here in just a second. Right after I tell you about Game Time, y'all, college basketball season is here. Nothing better than the atmosphere, the great atmosphere of a college basketball game. Who knows what's going to happen? What kind of crazy stuff? Like we're just talking about all those results at Battle for Atlantis. You couldn't have predicted most of that was going to actually happen, but it does. And you don't want to miss out on what could be. So the good news is that Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. What it does is Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time sorting through all the seats. And it's not just for basketball or other sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. So whether it's the Game Time ticket coverage, lowest prices guarantee, or the panoramic views from your seat in the app, Game Time's got you covered. I was just looking, man, there are some great options. If you happen to be in the Las Vegas area, some great options for the final day of the Players Era Festival, which is tomorrow. Or keep in mind, we got the ACC SEC Challenge coming up this week. Tuesday and Wednesday, I believe, are the days for that. I haven't previewed it all yet. I'm still trying to figure out Thanksgiving. And so that's going to be some great games. So if you're in town for one of those kind of games on an ACC or SEC campus, man, check it out at Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets, download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms do apply. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? It's game time. I love this tradition that was started this year for college basketball. We had the first Thanksgiving Day NFL game. It was on CBS, Lions and Bears. And following that, in Kansas City, still on CBS, we had Arkansas and Illinois. And so pretty cool. Makes a ton of sense to have one of the teams involved in the NFL game have like a team in the college basketball game that's immediately to follow from a similar fan base to try and keep a lot of those viewers around. So you have the Bears and then you got Illinois. Makes a lot of sense to me. And so Illinois wins this game 90-77 against ranked Arkansas. And the kind of fun storyline of this thing is you had Croatian twins, the Ivisic brothers, squaring off. Tomislav playing for Illinois and Big Z Zvonimir playing for Arkansas. And Tomislav wins not only the twin battle, but the war for the game. Tomislav, 21 points, 7 of 14 shooting, 6 of 9 from 3. This big man can let it rip. 10 rebounds. So he had that double-double, 2 assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks. My man is filling it up. And not a bad day for Zvonimir either. It was just that his brother had an even better stat line. 13 points for Big Z, 5 of 9 shooting, 3 of 6 from 3, 6 boards, 2 steals, and 2 blocks as well. These dudes, man, it's fun to see, and they're only going to keep getting better. The thing is, by halftime, Illinois had built up a 15-point lead, 49-34. And then the second half, they basically just held John Calipari's team at arm's length and just, if I remember correctly, it never got lower than like a 9-point margin, and it would float up to 15, 16, whatever it was. And it just felt like Illinois was in control the whole time. And what I loved about it from both teams is that Arkansas kept punching. They did not go away, but Illinois had a response every single time for what was coming. I mean, they were raining in threes. And that to me is the stat that swung this game. 3-point shooting was the story. In the first half, Illinois 9 of 16, while Arkansas was literally 0 for 7. And for the game, Illinois just dips slightly below 50%, 15 of 31. It's 48.4%, while Arkansas finally managed to hit some. They shot 50%, in the second half, 5 of 10, but it's still, they finished 5 of 17 for the game. That's 29.4%. And that's the storyline when Illinois hits 10 more threes. That's a 30-point cushion in 3-point shooting. And there you go. Now, for Arkansas, Aduthiero was the best player on the court. 26 points on 7 of 13 shooting. If you watch this Arkansas team, every time they're on the floor, his athleticism, it just pops, man. It's just one of those guys where it looks different, and he can get to the rim when he wants and when he needs to. The big kind of for Adu in this game is that he goes to the free throw line a ton. People couldn't rein him in, but he was 12 of 21. Like, it's impressive that he got there 21 free throw shots. Most teams would be happy to have 21 free throw shots, but only made 12 of them. That's got to be better. And so that's where it was. And once again, as is usually the case, I feel like I have not been able to figure out what Coach Cal is doing with his personnel and rotations and other things. Like John L. Davis, a guy who many expected to be like SEC transfer of the year, maybe contend for SEC player of the year. He played 32 minutes in this game, but just 3 shot attempts. I don't know why they're not getting this dude more shot attempts. And then Trayvon Brazile comes back to Arkansas, right? And it's just this thing where 7 minutes in this game. Jonas Adu, 11. And I know Adu's been kind of working his way back in and whatever, and that's fine. But nothing is quite egregious yet as what he did last year at Kentucky when, you've got Rob Dillingham coming off the bench. You got Reed Shepherd coming off the bench. All right, fine. Whatever. For Illinois, so helpful to have Kylan Boswell. 18 points, 5 boards, 6 assists for him. Kushionis had 23 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists for the Illini. So really, really good stuff. Brad Underwood had said, man, our offense is going to be legit, and they clearly are. It's just the question for them all season long is going to be about defense. Let's move on to other events. That was just kind of a standalone, again, Thanksgiving Hoops showcase. We'll get the same next year with different teams. I believe it's Michigan State and North Carolina playing that game next year. ESPN Events Invitational, we had an 18th ranked Florida against Wake Forest, and we had Wichita State and Minnesota. Florida holds off Wake Forest 75. I say holds off. They beat them quite handedly. Thank you very much. 75-58. And what I love for Todd Golden's team, man, is this guard trio of Walter Clayton Jr., Will Richard, and Elijah Martin, the FAU transfer. Man, there are a couple other 3-guard trios in America that we could pop off and talk about, but I would put this Florida trio up with any of them. They're so good. They've been doing it all season long, each of them averaging double digits, and they do it again in this one. 21 for Walter Clayton, 14 for Richard, and 16 for Elijah Martin, man. If he can continue to get that and get a little contribution from Alex Condon in the front court, who scored in double figures in this game, that's the thing. And for Florida, they are now 7-0, undefeated, even in the midst of all this weird Todd Golden stuff going on, which we're still waiting to hear more news on, of course. As for Wake Forest, a lot of people preseason were projecting them as potentially like a top 3, top 4 team in the ACC. I feel like I haven't seen them do that yet. They've got some good pieces. Obviously, they've got Hunter Salas, who's one of the best players in the nation. But they've just looked like fine to me so far. So really curious to see if Wake Forest can get some things figured out and Steve Forbes can get this team going. In the other game of the ESPN Events Invitational, Wichita State survives a last-second 3 from Minnesota to win 68-66 in overtime. I mentioned there's multiple overtime games. This is another one of them. And so really good stuff for Wichita State. They've not been the same Wichita State since Coach Marshall was gone. And I don't know, Minnesota's not like, wow, Minnesota, but Dawson Garcia is great. And you've got a couple other guys. So really good stuff for Wichita State, who themselves are now 6-0. So the Friday games for that championship is Florida against Wichita State. That's today, 3:30 Eastern on ESPN. FanDuel has it Gators -8.5. Kind of expect that. Third place game then is Minnesota and Wake Forest, 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2. I didn't have a FanDuel line for that yet, although I would expect Wake Forest is probably favored in that game. We could probably even find it on the Ken Palm line for it really quick. Ken Palm has it No, Minnesota favored by 2. Wow, that's interesting. Okay, that game is going to be more intriguing than perhaps I thought. Rady Children's Invitational. This one's some fun teams in this. Purdue against NC State on Thanksgiving Day. Boiler Up wins 71-61. Big fat day from TKR. Trey Kaufman-Wren, 22 points on 8 of 14 shooting and 8 boards. This is NC State's first loss of the season, coming off that ACC tournament championship in the Final Four run. But to be fair, it's been all bye games to this point, and this is their first high major opponent, so we'll see what NC State is going to be and going to do. In the later game, BYU against 25th ranked Ole Miss. This was the game I was more intrigued by, just because I expected Purdue to be about 10 points-ish better than NC State, and that's what they were. BYU, here is another overtime game. BYU falls 96-85 in overtime to Ole Miss. It's always wild to me when you go to OT and lose by double digits. Something has gone awry at that point. For Chris Beard's team, 3 different Rebels score 18 or more points, led by Jalen Murray's 27. If Coach Beard's going to get that type of production from that trio consistently, they're going to be in great shape in the SEC. We already know he feels good about his team. We just got to see it on the court, and this is a good sign against a BYU team that's got some really talented players in the first year there for Kevin Smith. So we're going to keep watching that. As for the Friday games, frustratingly, I don't think these games are on TV. I couldn't find a TV designation for them. The championship game, we've got 13th ranked Purdue against 25th ranked Ole Miss. That's part of why this is a bummer. 6 p.m. Purdue minus 4.5 at FanDuel. And the third place game, BYU and NC State, 3:30 Eastern. This one will be the earlier game. BYU favored by 4.5 at FanDuel. We got the Acrisure games going on. Acrisure Classic. The Must Bus stalled out on Thanksgiving Day. Let's just say it that way. St. Mary's almost doubles up the Trojans 71-36. This was an ugly game. Here's a good way to say it. USC scored an abysmal 21 points in the first half, but that was their good half because it got worse and they scored only 15 points in the second half of this basketball game. Literally an 0 for from 3, 0 for 12 for USC, 26% from the field in total for this game. Yikes. The other game of the Acrisure Classic is going on right now as I record, New Mexico and Arizona State. This game was interesting. New Mexico went on a 16-1 run late in the first half to take a 37-34 lead. Arizona State had been up, and now New Mexico has grown that lead. 13 minutes to go in the second half. They're up 8, 52-44. So they've just been on this extended run. Obviously, the winner there will not be playing USC. The winner will play St. Mary's, and the loser will play USC. In the Acrisure Invitational, Santa Clara over TCU. That's a big win for Santa Clara, 69-52. And Washington over Colorado State, 73-67. Those winners, those losers face off today. Again, no TV for this one either. I am bummed by that. But you hear what I just said. Santa Clara won. We had St. Mary's obliterate USC. Gonzaga won. Good day for the WCC. Way to go to this conference. Arizona tip-off. Butler wins 71-69 over Northwestern. And I want to bring this up because poor Northwestern, man, I thought got absolutely jobbed. Northwestern is down 3 under 10 seconds to go. Butler, Thad Matta decides, hey, we're going to foul, which is what you typically see up 3. But the tricky thing is you always got to do it before the guy gets into the shooting motion, because if he's in the shooting motion and he jacks it up from half court, that's 3 shots, baby. And typically you see this go well, guys able to foul, and it doesn't matter. In this instance, Brooks Barnhizer, crosses half court, just gets a couple steps past, and what looked to me as he was just starting his initial motion, Telfort from Xavier fouls him. And this shot banks in for 3, waved off immediately by the ref closest there. I appreciate him making a decisive call, but I thought it was the wrong decisive call. It looked to me like Barnhizer was not well in, but starting his shot motion. And at the very least, I'll say that we've been watching a lot of basketball this week, right? It's feast week, lots of great stuff going on. I have seen many more scenarios where players weren't even as far along as Barnhizer was here and were awarded foul shots. If I'm Northwestern and Chris Collins, I am very, very upset and disappointed in what happens. And then it kind of gets worse because you have a chance to make up for it yourself. Oh my word, back-to-back dunks for Arizona State. That was vicious from Jaden Quaintance. Holy smokes. But even after that, it gets to the point where there's about 4 or 5 seconds left. Butler's up to 71-69. Barnhizer comes screaming in, has a wide open layup. It's kind of like we talked about Elliot Cadeau in the third place game of the Maui Invitational final for North Carolina, had a wide open layup to go up with, under a minute to go in that game. Same thing here. Barnhizer, a run out layup in transition, misses it, rolls off the front of the rim. And here's where it almost gets worse. Nick Martinelli has time to tap it back in, and it goes up and looks like it's going to fall, but it spins around and just spins out. Man, I felt so bad for him. And Jamal Telford, by the way, leads all scorers in this game with 23 as Butler wins. And in the other game of the Arizona tip-off there, Mississippi State just dominates UNLV 80-58. So there you go. Whole bunch of stuff that all happened on Thanksgiving Day. Hopefully you were able to get away and watch some of it, or at least have it on in the background instead of NFL or the parade or anything else, because college basketball is where it's at, baby. You know it, and I know it. Okay, we got to get ready for the weekend where we will wrap up the inaugural Players Era Festival, and then things really slow down. It's a pretty slow Sunday slate. We'll get to that and unpack it all coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book, because right now, new customers can bet $5, and if you win, you get $150 back in bonus bets. Man, the FanDuel Sportsbook app, it's got everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. Love that one-stop shopping. So maybe you get a hunch in the middle of the game. Well, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more right there on that same page where you're already placing your bets. How about some updated Wooden Award odds? Auburn's Janai Broome kind of unshockingly leads the way at plus 220, followed by Duke's freshman Cooper Flagg at plus 300, Marquette's Cam Jones at plus 550, and then next is Purdue point guard Braden Smith at plus 1500. So go check it all out at FanDuel.com today. Again, if your first $5 bet wins, you'll get $150 back in bonus bets. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. As we look ahead to the weekend slate, a couple quick injury things. I talked yesterday on the show about Missouri's leading scorer, Caleb Grill, having an awkward-looking mid-air collision on Wednesday night against Lindenwood. Went to the hospital, had his head and neck area checked out. Thankfully, avoided serious injury and was actually discharged on Wednesday night. What we don't know yet is his timetable to return, but he is their leading scorer, 15.5 points a game, shooting 55% from three. So we will wait for that. Also, Alex Karaban, after UConn's loss to Dayton, was put in concussion protocol, went to be checked out for that. We will await more news on that. All right, let's get to the weekend slate where, again, most stuff is wrapping up. We do still have the Players Era Festival to finish off. We have and we talked about most of Friday's stuff with the rest of the MTEs, right? Like Battle for Atlantis and some of the other 4-team events as well. So we've already crossed a lot of that. But one other game I do want to point out today is just a standalone regular game. Pittsburgh at Ohio State today, 2:30 Eastern on Peacock. FanDuel has it Ohio State minus 3.5. I'm pretty geeked for this game because both of these teams are very intriguing to me. We talked about Wake not really looking like potentially the third or fourth best team in the ACC. Pitt, on the other hand, kind of is. So I'm pretty excited to see what they are. Ohio State, I like a lot of their pieces, but there's all this weird stuff going on with Aaron Bradshaw and Sean Stewart. And who knows what's happening there. So Coach Diebler's got some work on his hands that he's got to figure out. This is a true road game, though. We just love getting these. Thank you to both these teams for scheduling it. It's the first of a home and home. We'll get the return game to Pittsburgh next year. So I'm really interested to see that game at 2:30 today on Black Friday. As for the Players Era Festival, it's funny. It's the same thing I mentioned earlier with Maui and the final 4 games. It's the same thing with Battle for Atlantis, final 4 games today. We have 4 ranked teams in the Players Era Festival. None of them are squaring off today. The championship game is number 9 Alabama against Oregon, who's been playing well. 9:30 p.m. Eastern on TNT. And since those games aren't till Saturday, we don't have the lines for them yet from FanDuel. And so it's great. Like, I love now that we're getting games on TNT and True TV and TBS, because like typically on a Saturday, you don't get that because college football, while it's still going on, I don't know, we're in the last week of the regular season, but it's great to have this partner that believes in college basketball and is going to have this. So it makes me so happy. Thank you to the Turner broadcasting stations for partnering here with the Players Era Festival. The third place game, number 6 Houston against San Diego State, 7 p.m. Eastern on TNT. So that'll lead into that championship game. Fully expect Houston to win that game. Respect San Diego State, obviously. But I just think Houston will have a little bit too much there. The 5th place game, Texas A&M, number 20 in the nation, against Rutgers. Again, going to be fun to see the 2 big freshmen in action against the Aggies. That one's at 3:30 Eastern on True TV. And, obviously Nate Oates was highly complimentary of both stud freshmen for Rutgers, and so we'll continue to watch how they do. And then the 7th place game is the first game, 1 p.m. Eastern on True TV. That's number 21 Creighton against Notre Dame. And look, this is no gimme for Creighton. They're on a 3-game skid. Notre Dame has looked at least solid. Marcus Burton hasn't been able to play, and so we'll see how that game plays out. Something I appreciate about how Players Era Festival has laid this out, unlike a lot of the events, we're actually going in order. The 7th place game is first, then 5th, then 3rd, then the championship game. Thank goodness for that. It looks like we're having some technical foul issues going on in Arizona State, New Mexico. New Mexico just shot what looked to be some technical free throws, and I think Bobby Hurley might have just gotten teed up. Yeah, he sure did. Hurley brothers, y'all got to chill out, man. This is crazy. This is absolutely great, man. He is livid at the refs right now. Holy smokes. And then, look, Sunday, it's a big bowl and not much. We've got one ranked team in action. That's number 22, Xavier, who won't be ranked Monday. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you right now. And they're playing South Carolina State. It's not going to be a game. So Sunday, I would imagine Andy and I will probably record sometime earlier, because all there will be to wrap is Friday's games and Saturday's games. So that'll be pretty fun. All right, guys, the score. Let's score update here. New Mexico 60, Arizona State 51, 10:04 to go. And again, technical foul on Bobby Hurley, and Arizona State has the ball back now. All right, been so great to be together. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. I hope your Black Friday maybe it can be restful. Don't go out and go shopping, man. Just do it all online. So much easier. Here at Shady Acres, that's what we call my house. We're going to be decorating the inside, man, for Christmas, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited to spend the day with my family, and I hope you get the opportunity to do something similar to that. If you haven't subscribed to the show on YouTube and on audio, make sure you do that so you don't miss a second of college basketball. We're talking about it all the time. If you're not joined the Locked On College Basketball Discord, man, that's free to join, and the link is in the show notes. We're talking college basketball all day long on there. As always, apologies to the Lawyer family. Let's go Wildcats. Poor Wildcats, the Northwestern version. Man, they got jobbed. And Arizona. Boy, not a great day for Wildcats. Oh, man, we'll talk again on Monday, but until then, peace.